In this video, we are going to talk about ancient Egypt civilization.
Yay! Ancient Egyptian civilization, the greatest civilization in the world.
Yay! Let's go. So, the ancient Egypt civilization are located here. Wait, that's not precise enough. Give me a closer map. That's better. So the most important geography was the Nile River. People lived near the Nile. The Nile are divided with two parts, the Nile Valley and the Nile Delta. The Nile River coursed through Egypt, about 1,000 kilometers. So, the Nile River had an important role of transporting resources through narrow, long ancient Egypt. Transported food, materials for architecture, and wine that everyone loved. The advantage living near the Nile was the wet land. The Nile floods at June on rainy seasons and ends at September. They leave rich black topsoil for farming to get crops. Ancient Egypt was isolated by countries because they had mountains that rose through the south and deserts like the Red Land that protected Egypt on two sides. So I think it's not a good idea to invade the country other than visiting as guests. For class systems, they are divided by three parts. The upper class is the pharaoh, which is the top status, and the government officials. The middle class are soldiers, scribes, merchants, and craftsmen. The lowest class are farmers and slaves. The pharaoh was believed as gods by people and had extreme power to govern politics and control the whole army. The government officials supported the politics for him. For middle class, there are craftsmen who made jewelry, pottery, papyrus materials, and tools. The traders buy goods from crafts workers and artisans and sold them in the public. And there was the soldiers who was very brave to fight for their home country. The lower class farmers grow and produce wheat, vegetables, and fruit, but most of them were sent to the government warehouses for taxes. Surprisingly, slaves and women had equal rights as male Egyptians. Slaves could have their own land and personal items. Same as women, they could start their own businesses. For art, Egyptians used picture symbols called the hieroglyphics for recording. They also made music and sang along with instruments like the harps, lutes, and string instruments. There are two kinds of pyramids. So one of the earliest one are the step pyramids, and another one is the true pyramids. So they did lots of ceremonies for funerals, marriage, crop succession, afterlife, birthday of gods, and the Set festival, which celebrates the rule of the king and wish longer ruling.
As for religion and beliefs, this is a key part of ancient Egyptian civilization. Just like all polytheistic religions, Egyptians believed in multiple gods. So, they believed in the deities. The deities are the other name for the gods and the goddesses. People prayed to them, and they believed that they were part of nature and human activity. A very important god that many people may know is Ra. Ra represented the sun. People heavily relied on Ra and also the goddess Renenutet. They relied on them because they believed that they brought them good harvests. So why not worship them? Another very important goddess was Isis. Isis represented the devoted mother or wife. Her husband, Osiris, represented the people of the dead. He was the Lord of the Dead. And also, he was basically a mummy if you look at him. Another very important god that many people should know was Horus. Horus was the god of heaven, or the lord of the skies, and he was represented by a man with the head of a falcon. And as well, each city and town represented their own god and goddess. For example, Thebes represented Amun and Memphis represented Ta. Each city would pray depending on the certain god that they worshipped. People often prayed at home because temples just didn't offer the services on the regular. Each temple was also known as a home for a specific deity. And the world's largest temple is actually a temple in Egypt, and it's known as the Karnak Temple, which was created to honor Amun-Ra, who, if you know Amun and you know Ra, well, they actually merged together to create Amun-Ra, which is the god that is worshipped there. Ancient Egyptian civilization created one of the first religions with an afterlife. They even prepared for their deaths. Can you imagine? Rich people got pyramids prepared for them, such as kings and queens. Less wealthy people got smaller tombs prepared for them. They even took the time to prepare the bodies to preserve them. They mummified the bodies, they put organs into canopic jars because they believed they need them for the afterlife, and they left special items in the tombs as well for the people for the afterlife. Moments of their daily lives were also drawn on the walls, and it required a priest to bring the moments to life, which is believed by the people. And these daily moments of their lives, when they were brought to life, the person was brought to life. And also, did you know that people even mummified their pets? Can you imagine mummifying your own pet? We just get them and burn them into ashes and maybe save the ashes. As for education was a very important part of ancient Egyptian civilization. Only a small percent of boys and girls went to school, mainly the privileged upper-class people. Typically, people attended schools as scribes. Government buildings, as well as the king's palace, had scribal schools. The schools taught reading, geography, math, literature, writing, all these important things that we still learn in school today. And they wrote with ink and papyrus. Papyrus as in the paper that they used, which was created using the papyrus plant. Most boys acquired their knowledge from fathers, such as discipline. These boys typically became fathers or worked in the trades business. Whatever job a boy wanted, their parents would take their son to an experienced person of that career. If a boy wanted to become a doctor, they would, for example, work with a doctor. Girls, on the other hand, typically learned from their mothers. They were taught cooking, sewing, etc. And next, technology and innovation. Ancient Egyptians invented many things. They did many things for farming as well. For example, they invented the ox-drawn plow, which was a plow drawn by an ox. Can you imagine? A plow drawn by an ox. It plowed the fields so effectively, and it was much quicker. Another invention was the shadoof, which was built because the Nile River constantly flooded, and they wanted to take that to advantage. So they built the shadoof, which was able to maneuver a bucket from a canal, which the bucket would fill up water from the canal and dump it into the fields, and it would better their farming. It was very good. Ancient Egyptians also believed in something that is very complex nowadays. Obviously, for them, it wasn't as complex, but they believed in astronomy. To them, it was very important to them, both practically and spiritually. The stars told stories of the gods, and they also told people when it was going to rain, when it was the best time to plant and harvest their crops. They even told them when to build homes or temples, as well as many other important decisions. Can you imagine relying on the stars to tell you when to make important financial decisions, when to buy a house, when to build a house, when to do all these important things? Society would be a mess. Also, the Egyptians invented the first calendar they created the first calendar that consisted of 365 days, which was improved by ancient Sumerians. The Egyptians also created a second calendar that took the phases of the moon into play. The lunar calendar, as it was called, had 12 months that were typically 29 to 30 days in length. Each month began with a new moon. And last but not least, ancient Egyptians, 3,000 years before Christ, they innovated medicine, okay? They created the Ebers Papyrus, which was a 110-page writing that spoke about treating ailments like cancer, depression, trauma, heart disease, and many other ailments. The Edwin Smith Papyrus was another writing that spoke about surgical techniques, and it is believed to have been written for surgeons that work for field hospitals. Can you imagine? 5,000 years ago, 3,000 years before Christ, they actually understood slightly about surgery. They even could operate on teeth and gums. The London Medical Papyrus was another very important writing, but it was not exactly as practical. It consisted of practical medical skills, but it was also mixed with magical spells, and it was a writing that explained about treatments ranging from miscarriages to eye problems.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah. Okay, now we're gonna high five like the picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Go.